Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warmoth.
All right, welcome back to another episode. Scott, we were talking a little while ago about our musical interests or talents, if you will, growing up, of which I have none.
Well, I'm afraid I'm probably in the same boat. But when I was growing up, taking piano lessons was almost a rite of passage, at least in my community where I grew up. So, I took piano lessons for a couple of years and probably didn't like it. But, I wish now I had that skill.
Oh, yes, very much. Like if you see someone enjoying playing piano just for fun.
Yeah, and any type of instrument, actually. But I find that, I feel really limited. I don't understand, probably basic musical theory or questions. And, what is a key or just very basic things. And I don't really quite understand it.
Right. Well, as an adult now, I know and value what a good teacher can do for something, right? Your experience will be like night and day. And today's guest is actually a musical teacher, piano teacher from Pasadena, David Cutter. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very nice to be here.
So David, I said you're from Pasadena.
Not originally, but
you're
I'm a transplant, but I've been here 25 years now, so I'm almost an old timer.
Oh yeah. Well, where did you come from?
Central Coast. I was born in San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
And grew up in Morro Bay, just 12 miles north.
We just talked about Morro Bay not too long ago. Some fishing and crabbing up there.
It's a beautiful place. People ask me why I left.
Yeah, right. Well, why did you leave?
Well, I went to college there at Cal Poly, and I graduated, and of course there's no jobs there at the time. This was 1980. So, you either had to be willing to do retail work or start a business, and I was not in the mindset to do either.
So that was 1980. So you must have gone somewhere before you came to Pasadena.
My dad was working down here. I came down and got a job in Orange County, which, we got laid off in 81, the Reagan, whatever that was called, recession. And so I was like, I had been practicing piano. And we have to get to that history. So should I do it now, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I am curious. So you're a full-time piano teacher?
Full-time.
It's the only thing.
And a
it's your main.
Main
okay.
deal.
Wow. Well, that is pretty intense.
Yes, I'm an intense person.
Do we want to go into the history right away?
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to hear it.
Sure. So I had the same experience you did with the piano lessons. And I had a fabulous teacher who actually was Kent Nagano's teacher, when he was young. But I lasted 6 months and, I didn't like it. And he tried desperately to get me into some instrument. So I did play trumpet with him in his third grade orchestra. And so I had a little bit, and then I quit. I didn't come back to it till I was 18. I played by ear. I refused to take lessons at that point.
But you did continue playing an instrument?
No, not at all.
No.
I was totally, music, what's that? And was that way till 18 or so.
What turned you off?
I was a young child, so I'm only guessing here, but I think it was just, despite this teacher being a very good teacher, I somehow wasn't interested in learning what he was teaching. And I was a very stubborn, independent-minded person, so I think I just rebelled basically. And he tried drums, and the trumpet was the third grade orchestra.
And were your parents, trying to keep you interested in music?
I think they were more laissez-faire.
Okay.
So they just we give up.
Let it go.
Yeah. And again, it was only 6 months, I think.
So then what then turned you on again?
So in late high school, I had a friend who was doing light shows, and he was working with a particular band, and I started helping him do these light shows, and I don't remember what I think it was they wanted me to do sound one night, and so I was running the mixing board, and that was it. I really got into the sound. They let me play harmonica with them, one song.
What kind of music was that?
It was basically a top 40 band, but they were they also had some originals. They weren't your typical top 40 band, but they were doing the hits.
I remember when I was in high school and my brother was in a band, and it's interesting. I'm just thinking of that. He, on the other hand, is very talented musically. I think I would have a basic music talent as well, but he actually lived it out and played in a band. In high school, he was playing at other high schools and, playing for their dances. And he went on and recorded an album, and he even won something, the New Zealand equivalent of a Grammy Award for one of his albums. But he plays a hammered dulcimer. If you've ever heard of that, it's like a medieval instrument.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's a universal language, so I think we all have it in us.
Yeah.
Well, the question is, how do you access it?
Well, that's right. So you started getting into it because you were working with this, working the sound on for a band,
right.
And so I was thinking, wow, you probably had access to, like being very popular, part of a rock and roll band,
Yeah, that's certainly
was that
the
an
mystique,
appeal?
But
yeah.
No, not at all. I was not mentally that way at all.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, there's something here I really love. And I didn't know that at the time, and I couldn't have articulated that, but It's clear to me that I was smitten.
But one thing I'm curious about, you were working this sound board, you said, which sounds almost like a...
It does.
Not musical, but more
except that what
technical.
I was doing with it was I was creating effects. I had reverb to work with. I had a couple other tools, and so I was able to add to their musical performance. But I mean, that's a real minor point of departure. I mean, that's where I caught a bug. And then, after I started playing by ear, then I was practicing like 6 hours a day. And all I was doing, and this is no lessons, I'm just taking songs off of cassette tape. And just, I wore out a cassette player, rewinding, and I would try, what's that note? And I'd find it on the piano, and I was like learning whole songs that way.
And that's how a lot of people learned, I think. Even famous bands would just listen to other recordings.
Sure. The distinction is playing by ear versus, having the technical reading skills to actually decipher it from written music. But part of reading music fluently, meaning at sight, is you got to be able to hear what's on the page. And so hearing is really the essential element. And so, I had a talent, I had a good ear, and I could identify these tones. Can
you read and write music?
Yes. So I've been working very hard since then. So I decided I got laid off in the Reagan recession. I went back to college and worked toward a second bachelor's degree. I did not get it because I didn't see the need for a second bachelor's degree. So I spent 3 years at Cal State Northridge as a piano major, and found out how behind the eight ball I was in terms of reading. And so I've been working on it ever since. But really barking up the wrong tree in a sense, because this idea that you have to hear what's on the page before you can actually play it didn't come to me until the last 10 years or so. And so in the last 10 years, I've gone from, I kind of eked myself up from I can't read to lousy. And that took 20 years, right? And I'm like working on it every day. But I was missing something, and that was that hearing thing. And part of that is being able to predict what you're hearing and then be able to project it through your fingers. So, like I said, I didn't latch on to that until the last 10 years, and that was because I fell into the lap of an international Steinway artist who I got to take lessons from her for 3 years. My last lesson was like 2014.
So you said you think that everybody has this in them?
Absolutely.
And it's just a matter of bringing it out?
Music is a universal language. Everybody relates to music. And so how fluent are you in that language? Well, that's where the training comes in. Sure.
Wow. So do you mean with musical instruments that everybody could be able to play, or some people sing? Do you have those at the same?
Everybody's got different levels of talent, right? So what you bring to it, you can hone and then increase and make into something. So for some people, that's easier than others, right? The people with the talent or the beautiful voice, they can go to town right away. Others, it takes a lot of work to make something. But yeah, I think everyone's got it, and it's just a question of how do you bring it out.
So who is this teacher that you speak of?
Her name was, she goes by N. Jane Tan. We all call her Jane, but Natividad Jane Tan. She's a Chinese ancestry, but she grew up in the Philippines, and she came over here on a Fulbright Hayes scholarship to study with Leon Fleischer at Peabody in Baltimore. So Peabody's a fairly well-known East Coast conservatory, and she got her master's there. But she was being groomed for the concert stage, right? And so she's been teaching for a lot of years already. In fact, she was one of these, not only child prodigy, but geniuses. So she's got her bachelor's. She started college at 14. She went to special schools, and she had her bachelor's by 18. And she was a college professor at 18.
Wow.
In the Philippines.
So she was teaching you a very advanced level of
not only advanced,
piano, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't just advanced. It was that she has a particular notion about how to draw this out. How is it that people, and of course words fail us because this is a non-verbal language, music. But so trying to describe this, she describes it like you have a team of predictors in your mind, and one for each sense. And so you have an oral part of your mind, your visual, your kinesthetic, and your analytical. And that's just the four basic ones. Then there's sort of a spatial temporal sense. And so there's these predictors that you have in your mind, and you got to develop them so they work together. And it's only when they work together that you can, you see people who can just put a piece of paper in front of them and they can make it sound like music. Or, I can hear something and I can play it from just hearing it. Like Mozart was that way.
Mm-hmm. Is this kind of a holistic approach of incorporating all parts of your body?
Yeah, holistic is one way to think of it. I think it's more than that. You may have a sense that, the world, and in piano education, there's been a diminution of process. Things are, not improving. So around 1920, and I'm not going to mention names, but there was a best-selling piano method that came out, and it was attempting to solve the problem of there's all this sheet music that's available, but we don't know how to read it. So we need teachers who can teach. Everybody wanted to have a piano in the house and buy the sheet music and play the music that was popular. But it took so long to learn how to do that in the traditional way that we need some way to do this fast. And so this method came out. It was a bestseller, and of course, because it was a bestseller, a lot of people copied it. And by the 50s, you've got all these method books that are out. And what they did was they stripped out the traditional teaching, which was learning how to shape the sound of a piano. Piano's a unique keyboard instrument because you've got all this, not only volume differentiation, you can create loud and soft, but there's timbral, which means the tone. You can change the tone just by how you strike the key. Mm. And so all of that was kind of lost in these method books. And so now you have a lot of teachers who just have never been exposed to this. And then music majors, so you have trumpet players, right? So all music majors have to learn theory. Well, if you're a trumpet player, the way they teach theory is on the piano.
Is that right?
Yeah. So and because it's easier to see how the chords are all laid out on the piano. Well, on a trumpet, you can't see it.
Okay, I see. Yeah, there is a very visual
part
of piano that
yes.
you don't have with most any other instrument, do you?
None. And so every college music major has to take some piano. And so what you end up with is so our trumpet player, for example, he graduates and he goes out to the working world and he finds out, in order to supplement my income, because I'm not making enough performing, I got to teach. And so they all start teaching, and they find out right away that there's way more piano students than there are of any other instrument. And so,
well, that's fascinating.
They all start taking piano students, but they don't know how to play piano.
And isn't this true that the piano is a fairly recent invention?
1706.
Yeah, so it's only 300 years old, basically.
Yeah.
And a trumpet, is it?
Some of these instruments are much older, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So the piano was a latecomer to the sort of musical family,
relatively
I guess.
Speaking.
But it is actually, from what you're describing, kind of the fundamental instrument now.
In a lot of ways, yeah. So not only do university programs rely on it for teaching theory, but if you think about the piano, it's the only instrument. Guitar can do this a little bit, but very little bit. It's a violin. So playing multiple parts at the same time is what I'm talking about. A violin with a lot of, I witnessed a violinist play a beautiful Mozart piece, and it had 3 voices, and they were going in and out, and it was like counterpoint. So they would 3 melodies at once.
You could do that with a violin.
Yeah, but he's also a member of the LA Philharmonic.
Okay.
So this is highly advanced, right? A lot of skill there. On a piano, a beginner can play something like that. It's easy.
Right. Well, you've got 2 hands and you've got you've
got 10 fingers.
2 pedals at least, right?
Well, but it's 10 fingers is what
10
it is.
fingers,
so you can play a nice harmony, and you can have a melody, and then when you get more advanced, you can play a bass note, chord, melody at the same time. So you're doing 3 parts or more. You can do more parts. To
show you how uninformed I am, and this is one of the things, one of the very basics that I always am wondering, the difference between, let's say you just said harmony and melody.
You want me to do that?
Yes.
Sure, absolutely. There's 3 basic elements to music: melody, rhythm, and harmony. So rhythm, I think, is self-explanatory. Or should I tell you about that? Rhythm is
take a minute.
Rhythm is just, you have a steady pulse.
Okay.
Like your heartbeat. And then you do things over that steady pulse. Da-da, da-da. Right? So that's rhythm. It's different durations over a steady pulse.
Is that how you talk about time?
You need a temporal spatial awareness to do time, yeah.
Oh, so if you're talking 4/4 or whatever.
Right, 4 beats to a measure. And so there's a feeling to 4/4.
So rhythm is in every musical expression.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
There are things like in opera, there's a recitative, which, the pitch goes out, and it's kind of, there's probably a rhythm there, but rhythm in the sense of when you speak English, there's a rhythm to that. It's just not metered or, it's not mathematical.
Okay, so a million questions are coming up.
I know, that's the way music is.
Yeah, but I know you're explaining 3 things here: rhythm, harmony, and melody.
Yeah, so harmony is just, let me do melody first. Melody is like a horizontal idea over time. So you have da 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 da, simple melody. Okay, it goes somewhere, it's horizontal in time. Where harmony is more of a vertical thing. You've got notes stacked up on top of each other to create chords. And I can't simulate that with my voice.
Okay, but the concept of chord is the concept of harmony?
Yeah. So like a C major chord, that's a harmony.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you have to play those 3 notes of C major all at once.
Now, is there a defined number of chords, or could it be unlimited?
It's not unlimited, but there's a lot more than I can draw out in one. Yeah, there's whole books that are called chord dictionaries. So there's a lot of chords.
Okay.
But there's essentially, major triads and minor triads, and then you build things on top of those to make these more complicated, like jazz harmonies.
And then melody, you say, is expressed over a period of time, but it's a series of notes?
Yeah. If you look at a page of music going to the right, that's horizontal, whereas chords are stacked up vertical.
Okay, so you can tell by looking at a sheet of music. I know what you're talking about.
It's very visual.
You can see the measures, you can see the chords, and you can see how it goes over time. Okay.
I'm always interested in coaching aspects of people. I was really excited by your comment that everybody has this in them. That's a really powerful statement, and I can already feel how that would resonate with me. If my music instructor said that to me, I would be like, wonderful, let's get it out, right? And just that statement alone was so powerful.
And that's the hard part. So, what I've found is, some people will come to me and they have a particular idea of what they want to do. And I've gotten a lot of adults. But with kids, I try to find out, well, what kind of music are you interested in? And of course, most of them don't have a clue. Because I'm looking for, 5, 6. Really, you're learning language at 3 and 4. 2, 2 is a little ridiculous, but 3, I'd like to see 3-year-olds because, you can't do regular piano lessons, but you can certainly do verbal. They can acquire language, and music is just a different language. But so a little older child, I'm what's a favorite song of yours? And so they can come up with Christmas carols or there's some pop tune. And so, pop tunes are good because they're motivating, but, I wouldn't want to base my, my lessons around a pop tune. So I don't do that, but I will use them for motivation. Yeah.
Do you get a lot of young students who are just there because their parents want them to be there?
Yeah, but I have been lucky in that I think I've gotten more than my share of kids who are actually interested. But then again, it's, you got to draw them out anyway. So how do you make them interested? It's kind of.
So do you teach in your home?
Yes. And part of making them interested is I have something called a piano team. And so the idea here is, and this is Jane's creation, the idea here is 5 people playing at once like a piano orchestra. So, a lot of teachers will teach duets where you play with another person at the same piano. So if you just think about 5 parts happening at once, it's a very rich environment to listen to. And so you have to learn how to blend into that as well as shape and create music out of it. It's not just notes and rhythms. And so that's motivating because, it develops a team camaraderie.
So that you have to really prepare for, because otherwise it would be really chaotic. You're teaching each person a part, or
students have to prepare, but no, I can read the parts, and so it's just I have a score with 5 parts on it, and so I have a library of about 40 pieces, and so it's some are very simple and some are more complex, and it's really the hard part is getting people's schedule together so we can meet once a week, and so that's the challenge. And I was very fortunate when Steinway they've opened a bunch of stores on the West Coast, and they opened one in West Hollywood. That was their first one, and one of my students bought a piano from them, and so, I took advantage of the manager and asked him, can we rehearse in here? And and for a couple of years he let me on Sundays go in and we roll 5 Steinways together, and it was like a 2-story ceiling, so it was this huge room that had this amazing sound with these amazing pianos.
Haven't I seen a Steinway store here in Pasadena?
So a later store opened up here in Old Town.
So I'm curious. My experience with a piano teacher, I think at age 11 or 12, was not very positive. It just felt like, just to grind through a lot of practice, and I wasn't picking it up fast enough. What do you do with a student who comes to you who, let's say, either is not interested really in piano or sort of forced to be there, or feels that it's very difficult? How do you overcome that with a student?
I feel like at a young age, kids will do whatever you tell them. So up to a certain point, and that's why a lot of teachers just grind through. There's a whole lot one has to learn to really master playing the piano. And so teachers will just grind through all that stuff. And so that's the experience you had. And that's pretty common, I think. So I try to get through as much of that as I can do without destroying them. So, what's your favorite song? I try to find something that they like. And really, I think what one has to do, whether it's through a pop song or any other classical piece, is you got to figure out how to get them to be self-expressive. Once they start to discover that self-expression thing, that's why you do art. And so if you can hook into that, then all the drudgery is like, it means something, and they'll do that kind of stuff. If you're just doing the drudgery and you have no self-expression, it's just drudgery. And who's going to do that? And by the time kids get to be 12, 13, the social life beckons, and that's it. If they haven't found self-expression by then, they're gone.
Do you generally keep a student for a number of years?
Yeah.
What would be an age that they start, and how long would you keep them usually?
Well, pretty typically, people start until like 6, and that's too late. I mean, it's not too late. You can start at any age. I did. But the brain is growing so fast at like 3. That's when you want to start. And people wait too long because they think, well, they're not mature enough. I'm wasting my money. But there's a whole bunch of seeding of skills that you can do, even though it's sort of, they can't really sit still. So you're playing games a lot, but they're acquiring musical skill, and it's latent. So it'll come out later, but that really grows the nerve endings in the brain at that time. Whereas by 6 and 7, your brain doesn't grow as fast, and so it's a lot harder to get those skills.
Have you had opportunity to work with a 3-year-old?
I have.
Oh, how was that?
Well, you can't do a traditional piano lesson. So I have a magnet board, and okay, find the bass clef. Put it on the staff, and so it's manipulatable. They can just pick it up and, or we play other kinds of games. But you're working with the cymbals, and then you sing a lot because do, re, mi, fa, sol. That's excuse me. That's the musical language, and so being able to hear and relate to those tones, there's a relationship between those tones that you can hear.
At what age would they be able to start the actual physical piano playing?
It's very individual. I just they came to me as a 5-year-old, and the parents, the mom was, and this was amazing. This child was very unusual. He was one of those prodigies. So he could hear, he had perfect pitch. And we're doing this over Zoom, so it was like impossible. But I can see this kid has perfect pitch. I can hear, because I was playing something, and he goes, "You just played an F." And I did. I had just played an F.
Could you explain to me what do you mean by saying he has perfect pitch? What does that mean?
So most people have, I have very good relative pitch, and that means I need a reference. Dong, you play a C on the piano. Now I know where C is. Okay, so that's relative pitch. I need that reference. As opposed to perfect pitch, which someone just hears C, and I know that's a C. It comes out of their head. And I think you can develop that with enough repetition. I'm getting closer to that, but that's the difference. It's not needing a reference.
So, in other words, you could pick any note. You
could just sing the note. It's A or C or whatever.
I see.
Yeah.
My wife describes me as having perfect pitch. She's a singer. I am not.
Right.
I enjoy singing, and maybe that's where she says it, but I have no idea what really.
So you will sing, and she says your pitch is perfect?
That's what she says, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the test is, if you're near a piano or any musical instrument, can you sing a C and then test it on the instrument?
Oh, okay, cool.
Can it just come out of your head? That's the acid test.
Huh.
Will you ever use a smaller keyboard for smaller hands with younger students? No, always on the full piano.
No, and this is another sort of bone of contention. Is electronic instruments, they're good at what they do, but 99% of people use them to simulate traditional instruments. So this is my piano. They have all these home pianos now that are electronic. So the electronic piano market So these instruments are, they've gotten much better, and I own a couple synthesizers, but synthesizers and electronic keyboards are good at creating sounds that have never been heard before. That's what their forte is. And they're terrible at piano. So when I play an electronic keyboard, and people are always asking, come play this. This is the latest, greatest. And they've gotten much better. But when I go to play, and like I said, how you strike the key, you can get different timbres or tone out of the instrument. When I do that on an electronic keyboard, I get about 25% back of what I'm putting into the keyboard. It's an F. It fails. Total failure. So,
wow.
And so I'm always trying to, people will come to me, we have an electronic keyboard, right? Okay, well, you can get a very low cost, if not free, spin-it piano. I see them every few months.
What's a spin-it piano?
It's a very short, very cheap piano. It's like an upright, but it's on the short side. So yeah, people always want to use electronic keyboards, and it's like, you're never going to learn that, how to make the tone, and then to hear the tone. You got to hear the tone. You got to predict it. And keyboards don't give you enough to be able to learn to do that. Yeah.
Right. Well, we ask each guest to bring an item with them today, and I see that you have a key here. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, this is the key to my piano. So it's a skeleton key and silver, and it's just, I don't even think they make pianos now that lock, but they used to have a locking mechanism. You could close the lid and lock it. And I never lock it, but it's just.
So what is your piano?
This is my skeleton key.
Okay.
I keep it on my key ring these days. And I guess this piano just means a lot to me. I got it in 1989. It's nothing special, but it's, I've learned all that I know practicing on this piano. Mm. And so we've been together a long time, right? And I needed to replace the hammers at one point, so it's a Yamaha. It's got Japanese hammers, and Yamahas typically have very bright tone. But I put German hammers on it when I needed to replace them, and it sounds much more mellow now. And I like the tone of it. My tuner tells me that it's very difficult to tune because the pin block is wearing out, and so it's not holding a tune very long. But it works for me, and I would like to have a Steinway, but they cost a lot of money, as you may know.
How many pianos do you have?
I think I've got about 9 of them.
Really?
Yeah. There's 2 in the house, so I teach with one. I teach from one while the student plays the other.
Oh, really?
So that way I can go, move like this. And they hear the sound, and they see the motion, and then they copy it.
I see.
And so that's a very fast way to acquire.
Did you have 2 pianos, Russell, when you were studying it?
I knew that he had a lot.
Wow. Because I had just the one piano with my teacher.
And most teachers teach that way. It's expensive maintaining too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, like I say, they haven't really been exposed to all that there is. And so, teaching from 2, people will do that more commonly in universities. So you'll see it if you're a music major. It's just a very fast way to transfer knowledge and skill. And then I have 7 more out in the garage.
Wow.
And I have 1 on a cart, which is a whole nother topic, and I'll belay that. But you should know there's a piano I drive around town with. It's a little spin-it on a cart. I pull it with that bicycle.
Have you seen that?
I've never
seen that.
No.
So I have a video of that. I can send you
please.
that too.
And you mean you actually go out and play in public? You just
right.
Where do you go? What kinds of places?
Well, I was doing the flea market regularly.
So in other words, you're playing like a street musician.
Yeah. And so
a piano. That's interesting.
But it's a real piano, and so most people who do that will go out with an electronic keyboard for obvious reasons. But you don't get the tone, and there's something about a real piano that draws people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, the sound is,
and the sound is part of it.
Yeah.
There's something about, it's all that wood, and I don't know. I don't know what it is, honestly.
Yeah. Nordstrom for years used to have a live piano player for.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they still do anymore. Yeah. I recently saw a video. I guess it was in Portland during these recent riots, and someone had brought a grand piano out and was playing, and the video was captured as all this chaos was going on around I mean, police, you could see stuff flying and this person was just playing the piano.
Wow. That is a fantastic thing to do. Yeah. It brought a sense of peace, I bet.
I think so. Yeah.
I think one of the things I like about doing it is, I can play music from all these different musical eras. So, Mozart's time, and it's a whole different time. And so the music reflects that time period, and Baroque, a different time, and so it's a different mood that people don't experience.
Yeah, right.
Because they don't listen to that music.
So you very nonchalantly said that you had 9 pianos and 7 in the garage. For our listening audience, can you describe what that looks like?
Yeah. So there's 5 of them for the team piano, and so they're arranged such that everybody can see each other. And so 2 of them back to back, 2 of them back to back, and then a 5th one on a side. So it makes a circle, sort of. And so that's 5 of them. I have one I'm trying to sell, and then it was a short keyboard that I wanted for the house, and then the one mounted on the cart.
So also in an earlier conversation with you, you described a unique style of piano playing, sort of like an ensemble style. Can you describe that?
We have a score, so there's a musical score that everybody's looking at. Everybody's got their own copy. They see everybody's part on it. So it's like an orchestra score. And so all 5 parts are going to the right, and you play your part, and you can see when you get lost, they're playing that. I hear them playing that. So the game is to try to get back on the train without stopping. And so they have the music in front of them. What we were trying to develop is the ability to listen to each other. And so you listen for not only am I in the right place, but am I blending my tone? Am I blending the volume? So you don't want the melody to be louder than the bass note. So are we together? Are we blending? Are we playing at the appropriate volume? Are we shaping the music so the melody, it's going somewhere. It's got meaning to it. You don't just talk in a monotone about how you went to the store and, that's boring. But music's the same way. You want to shape the tone and the inflection.
Would you say that's pretty unique amongst, piano music?
Very unique. I'm aware of some teachers in Diamond Bar, Southern California, that are doing a similar thing, but those are the only people in Southern California that I'm aware of. And I have a colleague who's in the San Gabriel Valley who's not doing it now, but has done it in the past. So there's a few. There's one guy in the Bay Area, and there's Jane trained people to do this all around the world. And so there's several places in the U.S. where she had a lot of teachers that she assembled.
Are you seeing your students really embrace the things that you would like them to embrace? This love and passion and the beauty that is music?
Yeah. I think overall, yes. I have some holdouts, and they go away after a while because I won't tolerate that. Yeah, I've had to fire a few students.
Tolerate if they're lacking passion of the...
No, there's a bunch of technique to what I'm talking about, and so you have to do certain things to get it to come out of yourself, and some people just won't do it. It's work. It's not easy to learn how to play the piano or any musical instrument. So a lot of people they want it. They say they want it. They say they'll work hard.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then, it takes, 6 months when especially an adult comes to me, and they'll say after about 6 months, I didn't know it was this hard. And, so I've retained a lot of students I have one student I've been teaching him for 15 years. So I retain them typically. But, I'm not, you have to find a teacher that you gel with in terms of personality.
How much time do you spend with the student each week?
The standard's an hour, but I always go over an hour. But typically an hour.
They don't need more. I mean, ideally, would you spend more than an hour a week with them?
Yes, ideally. Everybody needs more. And of course, you get it the fastest by, osmosis from someone who knows more.
So I seem to remember I would have to practice every day. Is that what you demand of your students or expect of them?
Well, I certainly expect it, and I suggest it, and, if you want to take a day off, okay, I guess I can live with that. But, you're trying to build nerve endings in your brain is what you're doing. And of course, with those of us who are older, it takes longer. And so if you take a day off, it retrogrades.
Aside from trying to build nerve endings, what are you trying to do for these students? Why are you teaching? What do you want to see? Because they're not going to be professional.
No.
What do you want?
That's not the goal.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime of enjoyment.
An appreciation of?
Well, certainly appreciation of music, but it's that I enjoy.
Oh, for yourself.
Making music.
You enjoy it. You would like them to enjoy it, or you just enjoy as a teacher?
I'm speaking as a student. I have a lifetime of enjoyment. So I can create in them what they need to do in order to have that lifetime of enjoyment. In other words, they're getting enough self-expression from it
that
they don't
some
quit.
Point when they're an adult, they can go sit down at a piano and create something beautiful at that time. And just knowing that they have that opportunity in the future is what you're wanting.
Making music provides a lot of comfort.
Yeah.
It's fun. And never mind all the external of how popular you are and, how much people like to listen to it and all of that.
Right.
But what are you getting out of it? That's what's going to make you go through all the drudgery.
Comfort is something that many people need right now, especially with everything that's going on. I'd like to get a little bit more into that. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Warmoth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
All right, we're back with David. David, we're still in the middle, and I don't know, of this pandemic. How has that affected your business?
Yeah, like most businesses, I'm probably down by half. At first, I was doing lessons online, and online it works, but it's much, much less than when you're in person.
Less what?
What's the word? Less effective. I certainly can't play at the same time with other students. And so that's a lot of how I transfer this knowledge is we play together at the same time. Certainly the teams, but even in a private lesson.
Right.
So that's been a loss. And, a lot of people are just some of my students are too afraid to come back because they're isolating.
Right.
And now that it's getting worse, that's probably going to get worse. I'm down by about half and struggling.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you do, are they called gigs or events, and that must be gone too.
That's completely gone. Yeah, I did have work, and that went right away. And they actually called me about August, said, do I want to come back? Because they were thinking they were going to open.
What kind of places you would go to, a restaurant maybe, or?
Yeah, I've done all kinds. The Biltmore in downtown, I used to play piano in the restaurant there. But hotels and restaurants, and the last thing I had was it was a very upscale retirement home.
Wow.
But then I also drag my piano around, and my ideal would be the Huntington Hotel. That's one of my favorite spots.
The Huntington Hotel, is that?
It's the Langham now.
The Langham, okay.
Yeah, but it'll always be the Huntington Hotel
okay.
for me. But yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully things will pick back up and be even better than before. I'd like to go back to what you're looking for to pass on or to give to the students. What is that moment when you recognize in them that they've got it?
Yeah, there's a definite moment. I would describe it like like this, I see them creating something. And it might only be the tone, but in a moment, they are not playing, you have to practice and you over and over the same thing, and and it's it can be very rote, and you need to do that. But there's a moment at which you see them create something that wasn't rote. They just created it on the spot, and it was an expression. They might have just slowed down at the end of something, or they'll play it with a staccato tone, and it's like, that wasn't there before. They've got, I'm trying to create a toolbox for them that they can draw from. And when I see that come out like that, spontaneously.
Yeah, you finally saw a part of them in the music that they were playing, right?
Yeah, and it was spontaneous. So I know it's self-expression. Yeah.
That's really interesting, to encourage and get someone to express themselves in a this medium is music, but that's a really powerful thing as a coach and a teacher to do.
It's important as a human being to be able to do that. And I think, more and more, I think you see people shut down that way.
Right. So. And, music, for me, interestingly, looking back, I enjoy music that makes me feel something. And my wife asked me, I think about, why do I listen to music? What do I go to it for? And I think it's to reflect back to me how I'm feeling at that time. I know music is different from everybody, and often if I'm wanting to feel inspired, or if I want to sit in my sadness, that's what I'm looking for music to do for me.
There would be specific songs that you would play
yes.
From your past.
Yes.
From your growing up, you would know a certain song brings a certain memory or a certain emotion to you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's probably true of everybody, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everybody refers to music as the universal language.
I see what you're saying now, and as I think about it, I want to go back, if I can take a minute.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, sure. Right.
That universal language thing, but it's nonverbal, and so it's going into places that words don't go. You're going deep into feelings and other things that are nonverbal, so you can't really even talk about them.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's this. Yeah, this. And
everybody relates to those places.
I want to go back to a question I asked at the beginning, and now I can see how stupid it was. But there was a reason I asked it, and I said, I asked you, can you read and write music? Well, of course you can, right? But
that's a very, not don't assume that.
Well, yeah, because I have read of some of the greatest artists in history saying that they could not read or write music. And
it's by ear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, but you're a teacher, you would be expected to know. But if you were, a famous artist, you may not know how to read or write music. You may have just taught yourself and expressed it all yourself. And, that's, to me, I want to ask you a question that I asked my piano teacher or my music theory teacher when I was in college. Mm-hmm. It's just a personal question, but these guys meant a lot to me. And I asked that teacher, where do Lennon and McCartney rate in the sort of the hierarchy, or or Rodgers and Hammerstein, or compared to a Beethoven or a Mozart? How do they fit in? Who today are those contemporary greats that we would be looking at?
Yeah. No, I get it. I think Beethoven was just the Lennon McCartney of that day, 1800.
Meaning popular?
He was the first popular superstar.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't any mechanism around that. So he was like, dragging himself by stagecoach to city. He would go on tour.
Really?
He was a popular artist. There was enough of a middle class by his day, and it was totally different from when Mozart was around only 20, 30, 40 years before.
Really?
Mozart was like the servant of the monarch.
Uh-huh.
You know, he was a servant. He drove him crazy. But he was equal to Beethoven. And Beethoven, there was enough of a middle class that had developed that Beethoven could go and do public concerts.
Well, if you could describe a lineage of like 10 great artists, you know, would you start with Mozart, or who would you start with?
Bach is probably the ultimate.
Bach
was before Mozart.
Okay.
But you know, there's these amazing people, and there's more than 10, but certainly the pinnacle is, you know, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. You get into the Romantic era, and I mean, I'm really like having a great time with Rachmaninoff right now. Mm. But there's others, and you know, you go into the 20th century, and there's people that are considered the pinnacle of that era.
Who would be 3 artists from the 20th century that would be
Well, you
prime?
want to talk classical, or are we talking jazz, pop, what?
So there is a difference, huh?
Oh, yeah.
But, okay, so what was Beethoven, popular?
Well, I use that phrase popular. He was considered a classical era, late classical, early romantic. And so these musical eras are kind of similar to in the visual art world. You know, you have these time periods that are reflected in the art. And so the same thing's true in music. And so
I'm just waiting for you to say my personal gods, Lennon and McCartney, are equal to them. That's all I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, I think in some respect they are. But it's a different style of music. Much different. You know, popular music is it's like the old days, the folk music of old days. And so it's very simple so that everybody can, you know, relate to it immediately. The Beethoven and the classical work, all of that music is considered art music. It's the composers just go into these deep places, and it's complex, and it's, you know, it reflects sort of the thinking of the time. But it's much more complex, whereas folk music was very simple, it was easy to sing, and the same thing is true of popular music now. So these names, popular music, jazz, R&B, these are all different subcategories of music, and there's a lot of overlap, and the categories don't really say a lot, but that's how people refer to stuff.
I'm a big fan of Hans Zimmer and his work with movie scores and whatnot. I think it's like the big German composer sound, but more modernized. Are you familiar with Hans Zimmer? No?
I don't know the name.
Yeah, there's a bunch of these guys, Dario Marinelli, and you know, of course, what am I thinking of? Star Wars. What's his name?
John Williams.
John Williams. Thank you. Yeah. Now John Williams. I mean, that's a guy. I mean, I think film music has sort of, because there's certainly a modern, postmodern classical music. There is that style. It's very unapproachable for most people, though. And so I think the film music is where sort of a more approachable classical music is gone, if I put it that way.
Okay.
And John Williams, you know, he's the Lennon McCartney of film music, I think.
Well, there you go,
right.
Scott.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, in terms of popularity, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this show isn't about what's my favorite musical composer, but let's get more into some of your favorites. David, we'll go on to your favorites in the San Gabriel Valley.
We call this the SGV3. So your favorite 3 places, things to do, or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley?
Well, you know, I love the old buildings and houses and any old architecture. So I think, you know, I'm a little biased. I admit I spend a lot of my time at home, and I love my home.
So your home is
and
the
it
one
is in the San Gabriel Valley.
That's a first on the show.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
But it's
right?
it's like the wood in there and the architecture and
you told us earlier it's a 1913.
It's a craftsman. It's
Craftsman.
not by a famous builder, but they were well-known builders. Mm-hmm. And It's just so, I know I find myself, I'm doing this traditional art form and job. Mm-hmm. And my wife also has a business in the house. And so we're both working out of the house. And so, I'm more and more, and of course with COVID, we're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's my favorite
that
place.
makes sense.
But I do have others out there.
Yeah.
I've actually been to David's home, just the outside, the porch. It's a big, beautiful porch. Really warm and inviting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And the inside is even more. The wood is just so warm. It's like, and that's how we walked in the first day on a rainy February.
Oh, yeah. How long have you lived there?
It's 26 years or so.
Yeah. So that was your first home and your only home here?
It wasn't my first home.
In Pasadena?
It was, in Pasadena, right. I had been in LA for a while. But other places?
Yes.
I mentioned the Huntington Hotel. I've been drooling over being able to work in that lobby for a long time. Play piano in the lobby. So I love the Huntington Hotel, and I go there every once in a while. But it's a sort of a landmark in San Gabriel Valley. But then also there's the mountains. So we haven't gotten into this, and this is a whole another can of worms. Sorry, guys. But I'm a hang glider pilot, so I fly over those mountains.
Is that right?
On a good day.
Wow.
Yeah.
You hang glide over them?
Yeah.
Where do you depart from and return to?
Sylmar generally, if we're doing good.
Oh yeah. And how
you can get from Sylmar to here with no engine?
Yeah, and I've been as far as San Bernardino.
What elevation?
Those need to be good days, so we're typically getting to 10,000 feet. Yeah.
How long is that journey if you go from Sylmar to San Bernardino?
It's only 60 miles, and so it's about 3-4 hours.
Wow. And I don't think I've ever seen a hang glider over
I have never seen
mountains. They're very
here.
Small, and you have to be looking in exactly the right place.
Really?
And you probably need binoculars. But
did you say you're at 10,000 feet?
Yeah, but you're gliding, and so you're losing altitude as you glide. And so, by the time you get to the end of your glide, you're down on the mountaintop. So that's 5,000, 6,000.
Wait, so are you brought up to 10,000 with another plane?
No. We're using rising air called thermals. And so it's warm air rising. And you get in there. I mean, these are powerful enough to carry you and your glider up. And so on a good day, those thermals are going up to 10,000, 14,000 feet, on a good day. But typically they're only going up to 4,000 or 5,000.
Wow.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
That's an incredible view.
It's incredible. It's an incredible sport, actually.
How often do you do that?
Well, I was a maniac for it up until a certain point. I was going 4 or 5 times a week.
Wow.
And I was competing. There's competitions that happen around the country and internationally. But I have fallen off in the last few years. So I haven't flown now in 3 years, I would say. Something like that.
Wow. I never knew that. I never imagined that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, David, how can our listeners get a hold of you if they're interested in maybe taking lessons from you?
Yeah, all my contact is on my website, and it's just davidcutterpiano.com.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing, your journey, your lessons in coaching and piano, and that.
Happy to do so.
That hang gliding thing was pretty shocking and amazing.
Yeah, that really is. That is a whole nother discussion.
You wouldn't expect it. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for being on the show, David.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key at sgvmasterkey.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono and Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again real soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.